Another week of the Flame Central
right.
podcast. Is it powered by Alcova?
I don't know.
Mortgage?
It's not powered by Joe Yock, I'll tell you that.
It is not powered by Joe Yock this week. I think he's golfing in Indiana.
Gallivanting around the Midwest somewhere.
It is ridiculous. Thanks so much for joining. We have a lot to cover on this episode of the Flame Central podcast, powered by Alcova Mortgage. Women's soccer has started its season. Field hockey has some great preseason acknowledgements. We have Turron Davenport, ESPN NFL Nation reporter who covers the Titans, to give us some insight on Malik Willis. Yes. First day of classes here at Liberty University, the parking. I love, the energy when everyone's back, but the parking situation, not a huge
You love the energy. It's for about 2 days, and then you're like, man, summer is pretty great. We could just kind of walk into the office super easy parking. Nobody was at the gym.
No one's on the squat rack, just sitting there texting for 20 minutes between sets.
Listen,
Don't do that,
Put 6 more plates on there and get out of the way.
But yeah, we have a lot to go over. First, though, the fan appreciation game on Friday. The Liberty Flames had their, I guess it's the last scrimmage, right? Or is there one more?
Yeah, I think they may be doing it. It was kind of it's almost a spring game-ish feel. It was like a partial scrimmage, just a lot of kind of practice stuff, a lot of warming up, all that. It wasn't, I think, for people that expected like, oh, this is going to be like a red versus blue kind of, it wasn't exactly that.
Matt brings out the whole fam.
Right,
He's
the whole
like
family
bringing
was
the
there.
picnic table.
I will tell you,
pulls out
it was a 5
blanket.
o'clock start, and I will tell you, tension was getting high by 6. So we had not had dinner. The kids starting to get a little, I'm starting to get a little like, by 6, we're getting a little feisty,
Hangry.
People are getting a little worked up, but we made it to cookout. We were all good. So, no,
cookout.
It was a cool thing just to see some of these faces. Now, obviously, you and I, we've been to some practices and stuff, so we've gotten more access than most. But like, just to see some of these guys on the field. Now, who wasn't on the field was also very notable. C.J. Daniels, Noah Frith, they weren't taking part. Now, those are 2 guys, maybe the top 2 receivers on the team, certainly the 2 guys that have the most experience in a Flames uniform.
Right.
They weren't taking part. Once they got to the scrimmage portion, I don't think Cooley, Von Blue, or Billy Lucas, the potentially top 3 running backs, took part. So we got a heavy dose of James Joyner, the kid from Arkansas. He did some nice things. So it's kind of like a preseason game in the NFL, right? You're trying to judge what you see, but then also realize, but what I'm seeing is not all the pieces in place. I'm seeing just part of it. And I guess the biggest takeaway was Caden Salter was the first quarterback on the field. And
when you look, that is important. We want to talk about the QB battle in just a moment. But when we look back to last week, remember we were talking about Demario Douglas and how, why didn't we see him, taking that many snaps? Because, well, he gets the most playing time with the first team in practice, so we don't need to see it. So maybe it was a situation where, Chadwell wanted to see some of these other guys like in a game environment.
For sure.
Where, we can.
And if a guy's at all dinged up at this portion, in camp, like you're like, why? We're not going to run him out there for a kind of scrimmage and risk him getting hurt more. We know who he is, like a Cooley. He's going to be there day one. Frith the same way. So, yeah, I don't think they were going to take any chances with those guys.
Okay, well, we do need to take a chance on having a conversation of who will be under center for the Flames, because this has been the debate for really since Malik Willis left,
it really
which we'll get more to Malik in just a moment, but he's not here. So who is here to be under center for the Flames? Who is it going to be, Matt? Because, we've been talking that it's either JB or Caden Salter, but, you hear rumblings about, like, some other guys.
I do think it's those 2. We saw Hampton. We saw Trey Lowe in the scrimmage as well. But I do think it's a Salter and JB. And we should know this week, right? We should know middle of this week based on the timeline that quarterback coach Willie Korn gave us. He said, Tuesday, Wednesday, kind of in that range, they should be prepared to announce who's QB1, who's going to be the guy. And we want to stick with that.
Right, and they start prep against Bowling Green, what, Friday? I think they said Thursday or Friday.
That's the guy, there's no looking back. And so that is easy to say now, right? You get into a game, we saw it, with Liberty last year, you fall behind to a Southern Miss, and granted that was after, the kid from Baylor went down at the beginning of the ball game, the quarterback. But it's easy to say now, we want to stick with one guy, that's it. Then you start to trail, or then things aren't going. You turn it over a couple of times. So we'll see where they go. But at least for now, they're saying all the right things, that they want to just go with one guy and trust him. The question is, who's that guy going to be?
Charlie Brewer's who we were talking about, because I had to look that up.
Brief
I'm like, how
Liberty
in the world?
tenure.
But yeah, and you asked Willie Corn and Chadwell, like, what are you looking for in the guy? Like, who is the guy going to be? And he wants somebody to, like, take over the job and, like, walk around the facility like, I am QB1. And it's just, you know, I don't know.
I think they wish, I know they wish, that there was more separation at this point. And I don't think they've seen that. I know as a coach, you go in saying it's an open competition. You hear coaches say this all the time. It's an open competition. But in their mind, they're going, man, but I really hope that guy blows everybody else out of the water, and it's an easy choice.
Right.
You have guys, you hope they separate. I don't think we've seen the separation between JB and Salter that maybe that they hoped we would see.
And I don't think it's not only about the separation, it's about the consistency.
Right.
Every single press conference, we're like, we just need somebody to be consistent. But when you're learning an entirely new system, that is difficult for these players. But I mean, they're both learning the new system, right? So it's like who can pick it up the fastest and execute it on the field. It'll be really interesting. It'll be very interesting, and I do not envy being in these situations for this coaching staff, that if somebody isn't executing come third quarter,
are you willing to ride it out?
Are you riding it out? Because we heard Coach Corn say this last week. Like, you can't just go in with these guys thinking, oh, I can get pulled if I make a mistake, because then that's just like putting that doubt in their head, and they need to instill the confidence in these guys that we're going to stick with you if you make a mistake, but you got to not make mistakes.
So you have Willie Corn, former quarterback, right? Jamie Chadwell, who said in his last press conference, former backup quarterback. He's like, so they know the mental, what a quarterback goes through if they're looking over their shoulder. So they know. But at the same time, you also feel like I owe it to the team if something's not working to make a change. Can I give my prediction or my thoughts?
Yeah, I've been waiting for this, Matt Warner.
Well,
that's the only reason we still have this podcast today.
So if it were up to me, and you get the same thing, and I know Joe does as well, you're around town, you're hanging out places, and people are like, who's he going to be? Who's he going to be?
Right.
What quarterback would you choose?
This is what we actually do to the coaching staff.
Right, which is then when we're like, I don't know, let me call Willie and see if he'll tell me. Nope, okay. Based on what I've seen, and I'm not at every practice. I'm not in every meeting room, all that stuff. Based on the practices that I've seen, based on Friday, based on even what we know from last year, kind of letting that factor in, even though this coaching staff says they're not letting anything from last year factor into their decision.
They said they didn't even watch any film. Because they're like, how do I know what they were supposed to run in this particular play?
I'm sure they watched some film to gauge what they can do, but they aren't looking at it from the standpoint of like
grading them.
Right, because they're like, we don't know what was called, all that
right.
stuff. Based on what I've seen, I lean towards Caden Salter. And
going with the athleticism.
Right.
Not that JB isn't athletic,
no, but
you know
he
what
is
I mean.
an elite athlete. We've seen the tools.
Yeah.
What's been the knock on Salter? Well, it's just been some turnovers. It hasn't always even been interceptions. It's just been ball security, fumbles. I think he fumbled in each of the last 3 games last year.
Yeah.
Also, keep in mind, he missed a big chunk of the season.
Because
remember
he got
that
hurt.
middle portion of the season, he had that groin issue going on.
Oh,
so he had done some good things. He had Wake Forest. Look good.
Is right.
Southern Miss, he pulled Liberty out of the fire to win that ball game. Then you miss like half the season where you can't do much of anything and try to come back late, and he struggled, pretty well there down the stretch, especially turning it over. But yes, athletically, arm talent, he has things JB doesn't have. And here's the thing that I think makes it more difficult if you go with JB. And I love JB. And everybody does it.
That's what we hear time and time again.
He's got in his back pocket,
teammates.
like we keep saying, oh, yeah, I beat Arkansas and I beat BYU. So, like, he's also
in crunch time, like he has consistently executed down the stretch when the Flames needed those huge wins against Power 5 programs.
I think it's really hard if you have a backup quarterback that brings more to the table than the guy that's starting in terms of athleticism, arm strength, what he can do when it breaks down. It's hard to know that guy's sitting back there and not pull the trigger on getting him out there if it's not going right. So for me, I would probably start Salter and let him figure it out because, and we said this last year too, if he can figure it out, and Willie Corn says the jump he's made from spring to now is a bigger jump than any other quarterback.
Right.
Now he didn't say where he was starting from, but before he made it, but he said he's made a big jump. Like if he can figure it out, the ceiling is much higher for Caden Salter than anybody else in that quarterback room. So I would lean that way. Again, I trust Willie Corn. I trust Jamie Chadwell. They'll make the right decision for this program, all things considered. They've seen a lot more of these two guys than I have, certainly. But, man, from what I have seen, you see Salter make some plays, and you're like, nobody else is going to make that play. And it's really tantalizing knowing that that guy's on your roster.
And you can always rely on his legs. You know, like he can get you out of situations that I think, not that JB couldn't, but I just think that you're right with his athleticism. But Coach Korn was saying that they are literally tracking everything. Like they have every single throw, all the stats. So I don't know if like you just look at that sheet of paper or if you just go with like a gut feeling. But like I said, I do not.
We'll know this week. We should know this week.
I think we'll know Wednesday.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you guys know that we do a Flames fantasy draft, by the way. It does not include any of these quarterbacks. We're not allowed. I mean, really, last year we could have done that because everyone could have had a quarterback and they got some playing time each week. But that won't be the case this year, and we will not do quarterbacks. But it's basically like a Flames or a fantasy draft, same deal, same point system. We have 3 offensive players, 2 defensive players.
You, me, and Joe. It's just those 3.
Matt, Joe, and I, and we will have that on this week's Flame Central. So take a listen and watch that. If you don't catch it on Flame Central, we will do the draft.
We'll talk through it because it does a couple of things. I don't know about you, and we already shot it. So just to give a little like behind the scenes, so it's already done. We're not going to share.
We already know our
so
teams.
You, me, and Joe, we go through this. It kind of serves as a cool, almost like a team preview in a way, because we get to dive into who these guys are and what we think they can do. And we'll do that a lot more on the podcast next week. But yeah, it's kind of fun. And this year was especially difficult.
Because we had no idea who we were
so many new
drafting.
faces. There are so many new faces.
No clue.
So we're trying to figure it out. And that's what, same thing at the Fan Appreciation Day. There's so many guys, I'm sitting there with my roster, like, wait, who was, what?
That's us at practice, too. We have no idea.
And one guy that maybe we'll see this year and maybe we'll want to pick up in our Flames Fantasy League that was blowing it up at the Fan Appreciation Day was defensive end Larry Jones III, a freshman. Young kid, he was everywhere.
Really?
And so that's just a name to think about along that defensive line. We know Kendi Charles, and then there's a lot of guys that you're like, well, we'll see. Like, I don't know. We haven't seen him yet. So he might be a name to remember.
What's Joe's nickname for Kendi Charles?
Scooby Snacks. Yeah, because he says he eats the offensive lineman like Scooby. Joe has a lot of nicknames. Some, I would say, probably they won't stick. Most don't stick. Many probably should just be kept to himself. But I'll give him credit. He's going to throw it out there. He's not afraid. He's not afraid to put it out there.
Yeah, he should be.
He should be.
But I will say that I had some great nicknames in my or just like tie-ins with my players as I was drafting. So you really want to
watch that.
We're going to turn to the NFL here. Anybody else that stuck out actually in the fan appreciation game that you want to talk about? Or?
It was hard. It was just hard because you felt like some guys that you saw, make some plays. You're like, well, but I mean, is he even going to be on the field?
Right.
And
then you're like thinking of the cookout milkshake.
And I was really hungry in the back half of that deal. So I was just thinking about that spicy chicken sandwich tray. They had a 2-minute, they went to 2-minute drills there at the end of the practice or the end of the scrimmage, whatever. And there was a couple of nice plays made. Salter kind of same deal, kind of made a throw. I think it was on a 4th down that got him in a good position. But again, you're not working with your top receivers.
Yeah.
I think the Smoot kid, who we think could be an impact player, he only played maybe the first series, and I don't think he even played after that.
Yeah.
So it is hard to gauge.
You know what is interesting too? And now I just lost my train of thought as I was saying that, but
let me tell you the one guy that jumped out that again is a young guy that you may not see. I don't know. Coleman Baker. He's a 5'11" freshman wide receiver from Brentwood, Tennessee. He made 2 incredible catches there in the end of that 2-minute drill, one to give him a first down and then a touchdown grab as well. So I don't know that you're going to see a lot of him.
Right.
Maybe not at this point of his career. But if you're wanting to catch some eyes, he did.
Yeah.
He's a guy. Who is this kid? Who's 22? Let's look this kid up real fast.
The 2-minute drills is what I was going to say. And each coach is different. So it's not like this is like a better practice method or not. But what's really been really neat to see in the middle of practice, Chad will just be like, change your plans, 2-minute drill. And it's just like everyone's scattering. And it really looks like me running to the show every week.
Late.
Yeah.
Late running. Yeah.
No, but it's really cool because it challenges you in the most extreme. You have no idea.
You can't be comfortable.
Do the coaches know that that's coming at some point during the practice? Probably, maybe.
Yeah.
I don't know. But it's just really neat to see, like, it's not just like, oh, we know that we're going to do 2-minute drills at the end of practice. Like previous staffs, it was just like, hey, we're in the middle of doing special teams, and then it's like, hey, change of plans. We're doing 2-minute drills, and it's just, you can just tell people are like, you know, like Matt said, me running into work late. Okay, so let's transition to the NFL. Before we get to our interview with Turron Davenport of the Titans, ESPN Nation, with the Titans to talk a little Malik Willis, Demario Douglas. Yeah. We saw him a few more snaps this week than...
Well, he had 2 catches. He only played, based off what I found, he only played 3 offensive snaps in their game. Now, he had 2 catches on 3 of them, but he is being treated like a 7-year vet that's racked up a couple 1,000-yard receiving seasons already. You know what I mean?
That's what I'm thinking. It's not that I'm surprised that he's like, I had no idea he's just a great player, because obviously we knew that, but it's just at that level, and he's just like not getting that in game. I'm like, what?
Bill Belichick has bought in all the way on Demario Douglas is what's surprising. Because I'm with you. We knew he was very talented. We knew he would make some plays in the preseason. But as a 6th-round pick, we didn't know they would treat him like they've treated him. And, I mean, that's incredible. Great for him. What a good kid. And now you're like, okay, I don't even know if he'll play in the 3rd preseason game. You know, I don't even know if they'll even run him out there if it's just regular season now for him. But I'm excited now to see how they use him in the regular season, how many snaps he gets. And, I mean, with each passing week, you kind of go, okay, this is real. And this isn't just like your training camp darling. This is like, no, this is the real deal. They see him as a valuable piece of their offense.
Pop Shada.
That's it.
Pop Shada.
Yeah.
And there's only 3 preseason games this year, right?
Only 3, so they've just got one more Friday against
4 to 3
Titans.
Yeah. So Demario Douglas and his Pats will take on former Flame Malik Willis and his Titans. And we wanted to get a little inside scoop because we saw a big sample size of Willis in his latest preseason game against the Vikings. So let's go to our conversation with Turron Davenport, ESPN NFL Nation's reporter who covers the Titans. Okay, today's guest for the 2nd time on the Flame Central podcast, powered by Alcova Mortgage. You know, we just had to bring him back. Turron Davenport knows all the inside scoop on former Flame Malik Willis. Turron, before we get into all the stats and numbers and everything, just overall, what would you say is the biggest improvement you've seen in Malik Willis in the last 2 seasons, you know, from last season?
Yeah, I think the biggest improvement is just the comfort level. When you see him in the huddle, which is something he didn't do much there at Liberty, he's able to handle the operation well. And he just carries himself with a lot more confidence. And just like anything, once you go through something for a full year, you come back and you're going to be at a different level. And you can see that. And he had a really good group of practices there in Minnesota against the Vikings. He really, really stood out. So it was good to see. And it's just a different comfort level for him.
And I'm sure that helps the other guys on the offense to buy in on him under center, right? That he's feeling a little bit more comfortable and confident that, like, hey, I believe in this guy leading this offense.
Yeah, the thing that's really interesting is even last year, they bought into Malik Willis. It just, he has a presence with him, a calming presence, I would say, whereas it never seems like he's rattled. And that's something that you always want in your quarterback. So this year you're seeing that again, but that's not a new thing. Guys have always bought into Malik Willis.
Yeah, you talk about what you've seen from him. How would you characterize maybe what the front office, the coaching staff thought Malik's future would be after year 1, end of last season, compared to maybe what they think today?
Yeah, that's a good question. And Mike Vrabel, the head coach, one of the things that he's continuously said about Malik Willis is the presence and the way he carries himself in the building, whereas he's carrying himself like a franchise quarterback, like a leader. That's probably the biggest thing from the front office. Now, Rand Carthon was not the GM last year.
Right.
John Robinson was. So he just really came into it with an open mind, and he likes what Willis brings as well.
Do you think that, you know, Malik Willis and his future with this program or with this franchise, he's going to be the guy? Like, what's the timetable on that? And is that just being a little ridiculous, Emily, for answering or even asking that?
No, it's not being ridiculous. That's a question that needs to be asked. This is a team that traded up to be able to draft him in the 3rd round. Now, of course, they traded up to draft Will Levis in the 2nd round this year. But it's really it's a competition right now for the backup spot. And I think the Titans are in a good place, whereas they could carry 3 quarterbacks. Willis will obviously be one of them. And Ryan Tannehill is going to be the starter. But at some point, Tannehill is going to they're going to move on from him, and Levis and Willis will get the fight for that starting job. So I think eventually there's going to be an opportunity for him to fight for it. I don't know how that's going to work out, but I'm just glad that he's going to get the chance to battle it out.
You talk about Tannehill, 35 years old now. We know the injuries he battled a season ago. Willis, Levis, both unproven behind him. I mean, we think back to last year. They turned to Josh Dobbs, right? They're late in the year. Do they?
Yeah.
2 guys behind an older quarterback that has some injuries. Is there any concern about just the inexperience? Do you think they may even still try to find a veteran to kind of really be that guy in case something were to happen to Tannehill?
Right. I don't think they're going to do that. In fact, Mike Vrabel was asked about that yesterday at his press conference, and he said he doesn't anticipate them signing any quarterback in the future. And that's a good question because Levis is dealing with a lower body injury, and he didn't play in the Saturday's preseason game against the Vikings. So if they were going to sign a quarterback, it would have been at that point, and they haven't. So I think that kind of says it all, that they're comfortable moving forward with the 2 young guys behind Tannehill.
All right, Turron, today is the first day of classes here on campus at Liberty University. I know we all probably just loved going to school.
Right,
you know,
right.
That first day of school is always much
great.
fun. But I'm transitioning to the grade. What grade? We saw a huge sample size of Malik in that Saturday preseason win over the Vikings. What grade would you give him on his performance?
I would probably give him a B. I know there were 2 throws that he definitely would want back, but there were some throws that he made where his receivers didn't come through for him. He just continues to show that he could make it work when all things break down. He could go back to Old Faithful, his athleticism, and make a play with his legs. But the reason why I give him a B is because in talking to him, he said something that really stood out to me. And he was saying that he was trying to hang in the pocket and give his guys more opportunities to get open because he wants to give everybody a chance, right? Like things could break down and he could just take off and get you 20 yards. That's easy work for him. But he was trying to make sure the other guys got involved. So that to me shows a progression from the athletic quarterback to just playing the position and trying to make everybody better. That's why I give him a B.
I guess last thing for me, we saw the trust factor maybe with Malik last season when he got an opportunity wasn't necessarily there. They didn't maybe trust him to put it in the air as much. Do you feel like that has grown to the point where if called on this year, you'll see a more expanded version of the offense that he's going to be running?
Yeah, I think he'll get the keys to the car instead of the valet key. You know what I mean? He'll get an opportunity to run the offense, and they like what he's done. And I definitely feel that he would get a legitimate shot if it was turned over to him.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, last one from me. Do you think, with Malik and really just the media in general, when you come in as a first-year quarterback, I feel like we put all this pressure on these young guys to be able to make that transition to the next level. Now that he's in his second year, is the processing, is it there? Because I feel like that was one of the early criticisms with Malik is like, will he be able to process the game at that level? And it seems like we're seeing that in the second year. And we hear all the time, like the third year is like where they really make the jump. But if we're already seeing that, then that's a good sign.
Yeah, I'm glad you asked that question because the processing is absolutely there. And I like when you're watching the game, if you could do it from the all-22 level, you just see how the quarterback's helmet moves. And that lets you know that he's going through the progressions and you're seeing it go left or right. And that's something, again, going back to what I said about remaining in the pocket. A lot of times, especially with black quarterbacks, is, they like to make one read and take off. Well, Malik is going through 3, sometimes 4 reads and trying not to take off because he wants to give somebody an opportunity to make a play. And that's the progressions. And I think, there's certain things he could see a little bit quicker, but there's times where he's throwing with great anticipation. And there are one of the drops that Chigakonko, the tight end, who was his roommate in training camp last year, one of his drops is a good example of how Willis saw everything, processed it, went to the right read, and threw it in anticipation, but it hit Alcova in the hands and he dropped it, so it didn't count in the stat sheet. But that's obviously something that, was an area for improvement, and he's gotten a lot better with it. And I think it's legit now.
Great insight and information from Turron Davenport. Got to keep him on speed dial. Hopefully we'll get out to Tennessee, out to Nashville to catch a game soon. You guys can follow him at @Davenport_NFL.
By the way,
he
one
has
of the
great
best
info.
dressed dudes on game day.
Oh, yeah.
You don't hold back on game day. I see your pictures out there.
You.
Yeah, you bring it on game day. That's a good look.
You know how they do that? Have like all the guys coming in with their little makeup packs, and not makeup, but they're not wearing makeup. But you know when they're coming in the locker room,
right.
You need them to do that for you, and the media corner as well.
Yeah.
Hey, that's a good idea. Maybe we'll work on it. I gotta find somebody to video.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Trendsetter. Turron, thanks so much for your time.
Appreciate
We'll keep in touch with you. Take care.
Sure, appreciate you.
Okay, Matt. So we heard Turron tell us that Willis wanted to really stay in the pocket to get so his guys could get open. That seems like the same Malik that we knew from back in the day. Yes, he did. Use his legs quite a bit, and I don't think Hugh Freeze had a problem with that. But you just see that, and I think as a coach, you hear that, and you're like, okay, this guy isn't just trying to win this backup job for himself and put some stats on the board. He's really trying to get his wide receivers in the game as well.
Well, you're not going to improve as a quarterback if your first instinct is to take off out of the pocket.
Right.
You're just not. So that you can tell that's a point of emphasis for him, and that's the fine line. You get these guys. That's what's so hard for a really good athlete like Malik. Is starting to get the feel of when is it okay to use my legs and when do I need to hang on? Maybe it's just a half second longer to let the guy come open. And that's for a young quarterback, I feel like that's so much of what goes into kind of their struggles or their successes is kind of walking that fine line of figuring that out. But Turron seems pretty high on him.
I know. And this is, okay, back to, we get a quarterback in the NFL making the transition, and you're just like, oh my gosh, the expectations are just unrealistic. And I'm not saying Turron didn't seem like Malik was an NFL quarterback last year, but he seems to have we saw glaring improvement and quotes a lot from Vrabel, and you can see that Turron, I think, is buying in on that as well.
I keep going back to Malik was never, I don't think, supposed to play last year. You know what I mean? In a perfect world, he would have just backed up the entire season, been around Tannehill, learned all of that stuff, right? And that's not what happened. He got thrown in there. Some flaws in his game got exposed, which every young player, they're going to have that happen. And so then all these people are jumping off the bandwagon, oh, well, he can't, you know what I mean? Well, he wasn't meant to be out there at that point in his career anyway. Right. So now I think we're starting to see what we should have seen, which is, year two, look at how much more he's developed. Look at the understanding he has. You talked about how quickly he's processing stuff. He's just more comfortable. He knows what to expect. So I'm excited for him. And you hope, you don't wish injury on anybody, obviously, but you hope if he gets that next opportunity, should Tannehill get hurt, you're going to see the Malik Willis that we know is in there that we didn't really get to see last season.
It'll be interesting because you said it all along when he was, going through the NFL draft, 2 years ago. The Steelers, we thought he was going to Pittsburgh, and we're just like, oh.
Mike Tomlin they were all eating wings at neighbor's place the night before his pro day. And
you were saying, we think that he would thrive in an offense where he could be, have a year behind a veteran QB like Ryan Tannehill. And, like you said, that didn't work out perfectly, but I think that he's winning that backup job right now. So it should be interesting.
How fun is this, though? We've got a Liberty quarterback in the NFL, right, that we're talking about that's getting a ton of snaps, a receiver that's getting a ton of action, guys that could play meaningful snaps, certainly in DeMario's case. Then you throw out there Deron Lowe. He got picked up by the Chiefs, and he got in, had a tackle in their preseason game. I know Darrell Johnson is still with the Cowboys. So it is cool to see these guys not only with teams, but certainly in DeMario and Malik's case, they're meaningful guys on these rosters. They're not fringy guys. It's going to be fun watching their games this year.
Recruiting. Come to the mountain, and you will play meaningful snaps in the NFL. Okay, so I'm a little disappointed in Flames Nation.
What is that? I know what you're going to say.
The mailbag. The mailbag is empty. I keep reaching into the mailbag. It's flamecentral@liberty.edu. You can send in all
Let us know, especially once we get into the season.
In the entire email, and we will
because
read
you
that
can
email.
get a mug if
Free
you
mug.
send us. Where are we right here? Send us the question. We will. In fact, I have one all packaged up right now in my office, just waiting to slap. Maybe it's your address. I'm ready to put it on that package right now and send you a mug. Send us a question. Actually,
we should get a lot more now that like football is gearing back up and all of that.
Two things. Number one, I was leaving a practice last week. I know I told you this already. I was leaving a football practice last week, and there was this guy outside of practice, kind of on the sidewalk, kind of trying to peek in, look in a little bit. And I was walking by. He was like, hey, I just want to tell you, I'm from Pennsylvania. I'm in town dropping my son off. He's a freshman here. He's like, but I love the podcast. He's like, I sit there refreshing my computer on Mondays, waiting for it to pop up. I'm like, well, if it's late, it's because Emily was a little slow editing it. No.
That's not true. But I do feel like Joe Yock might be paying people around town to say this.
That happens
it would not
a lot.
Surprise
That happens a lot. So really appreciated that, getting to chat with him a little bit.
Yeah.
The other thing that we've talked about a little bit, I think we've settled on, that could be different this season for the podcast, we have these midweek football games.
This is true.
So I think what we're going to do, we haven't really cleared this with anybody yet.
We have actually never had a production meeting about this.
We really haven't. We're kind of just figuring this out right now in real time. I think we're going to try to do the podcast the morning after the game. So if it's a Tuesday game, we'll do it on a Wednesday if you're available. So it'll be a little fluid. But we may try to do that because this is what we love. During the season, I know we've had a lot of interviews and stuff during the summer.
Well, that would just be an October special. Because it's just October.
Right.
But yes, otherwise, I think we stick with the Mondays. Again, we're figuring this out in real time so we can argue.
What we love the most, I think, is those as soon as the game is over or as soon as we can, like the next morning, being able to dive into it, react to it. And that's what we love the most. And so that'll give us a chance to do that for those midweek games. So we're excited about that.
FlameCentral@liberty.edu for those questions. Let's shift over to the ladies. Women's soccer started its season. Friday had a 2-1 victory over VCU. Then on Sunday, 1-0 win over Delaware. So they're starting the season 2-0. We have, I don't know if I've mentioned this on the Flame Central podcast yet, but the My Moment episodes that we do where like each player says their favorite moment in a Liberty uniform. We have some great ones coming out from women's soccer, so be on the lookout for those.
And they had a little adversity to start the year.
Oh, yeah.
They were supposed to play at VCU Thursday night. They got there. Then there was lightning. They ended up canceling it. And so they apparently they drive home, turn around, get up the next morning, drive back there again.
Oh, they didn't stay over.
No, I heard they came back. So, because they were playing at 1 o'clock on Friday now.
That's
quick turnaround, and they end up still pulling it out. So you face a little adversity. Then they win at home against Delaware. This is a team that, high expectations going into CUSA. They've got some players. Certainly, Bridie Herman's one that we've touched on a lot here already. But it's going to be fun to watch out.
Yeah, I have high expectations for them. Great group of girls. Also, field hockey.
Yep.
Was hanging out, we were doing some My Moments with them on Thursday. First of all, their locker room, I think it's new. It's updated. I know they're doing renovations. It is so sick.
Yeah.
Like they have like these like wall wraps that I think we needed some of those in Flame Central. I don't know who I need to talk to about that.
Wallpapered?
Yeah, I want like a wall wrap.
Of just you on the sideline with the microphone?
No, I'm kidding. But huge expectations for this team as well. They're projected to finish first in the Big East. Then you have Azul Aritzidiotion, which she says her name way better than I do. When I was doing her My Moment, when they say, my name is Aritzidiotion, it's like this flavor
it really
and
sounds
this
good.
like accent that I really need to work on. She is projected to be the Big East goaltender of the year, or goalkeeper, I think is how you say it in field hockey. Bethany Dykema, defensive player of the year. Reagan Underwood, the co-midfielder player of the year. So it should be pretty interesting. I'm not trying to give anything away, but I think that this team,
something special brewing.
I think there's something big going on with them, and they could go right back to that national championship game, if not win it this year. So
wow, don't put too much pressure on
I know.
her.
I'm not putting any pressure. I think that they all are just, you can tell that there is just a bond on this team. And this is Azul's last year, a few of the girls last year. So there's just, first of all, their moments are so neat because they have so many from that national championship run. But I don't know. There's just something special going on with this team. So we'll see how everything pans out.
Just real quick, some other stuff. Men's soccer starts its season Thursday. They are home, so Thursday night. So get on out to that. They're playing St. Peter's, the Peacocks.
Ooh.
St. Peter's Peacocks.
Forgot.
Yeah, there you go. And then volleyball this weekend as well.
Volleyball, and did you see women's basketball? Tennessee is coming to town.
The Lady Vols. How about that?
That is crazy.
And it's New Year's Eve.
New Year's Eve.
So, like,
I mean, who wouldn't want to spend New Year's Eve in Lynchburg,
let's go.
Virginia?
Yeah, I mean, where do the Lady Vols go after the game to ring in the new year?
Alcova Mortgage.
Is that little Applebee's open still close next to camp?
I don't know.
There's a funny story, just real quick, that Paul Naz again, our men's basketball analyst, always tells, because he was a coach here, right, for men's basketball. He talks about they were on some road trip, New Year's Eve, and Coach Meyer, who's being inducted into the Hall of Fame this year at Liberty, all of a sudden just like stops. It's like a 3 15-passenger vans all following each other. Like pulls over and is like, "We're gonna celebrate the new year." And they're like, "What?" And so like he just like, "Follow me." And they go zipping around, and he just pulls into a random hotel. They all go running in to like the event center or whatever at like 11:58. They count it down, "Happy New Year!" And then they all run, get back in the bus, and hit the road again and keep on driving. And Naz is like, "It was the most random thing." But that's what you do, I guess, sometimes. You're on the road, you just find
I thought you were
them.
going to say they went to Applebee's, because I would.
I'm sure they
I'm
did.
not. I don't have any NIL deals with them, so I'm allowed to say this. Like Chili's all day over Applebee's.
Okay.
I would never eat at either. Well,
Wow.
unless
You
I was
better hope
forced to.
Applebee's doesn't have any
But I'm
deals
just
with
saying.
Liberty.
Yeah,
You'll
I
just
hope
throw
not.
them under the bus.
I'm just like, I would choose Chili's all day over
Okay.
Applebee's, but.
Hey,
No one's asking me. Remember, FlameCentral at liberty.edu.
know.
That's it for this week. We'll see if Joe has time next week
week's
to
going to be
come
a
on
lot
the
of
show.
fun, diving into a lot of individual players. It's going to be good. And we'll probably be
Hopefully
looking ahead to Bowling Green a little bit, too.
and breaking down a little bit on who is named, hopefully, the Liberty quarterback. So be sure to tune in next week. And I think that's it.
Watch the TV show this week if you want to see the Flames fantasy draft. Also, a piece on Reagan Underwood. Reagan Underwood.
Yep.
Field hockey as well. So a lot of good stuff we're touching on the TV show.
Awesome. For Matt, I'm Emily. We'll see you next week.